Hi there. Welcome to Conversations, where we seek to advance your leader and team excellence by discussing relevant topics that impact today's organizations. Welcome to the show. Hey there, leader, and welcome to Conversations. Today we have Dr. Synetheia Newby, who is an international speaker, leadership strategist, and national trainer. She is committed to equipping individuals to live and lead boldly, authentically, courageously, and unapologetically. Geez, I just love that right there. She is the president of Greater Works Consulting Group, LLC, and creator of the how do I say this?
Baku, you got it.
Baku brand. We might have to ask you about that.
Absolutely.
Dr. Newby has written 3 ebooks. I Said Goodbye to Fear, Fakeness, Perfection, and Approval. The second is To Resolve or Not Resolve, as well as It's Okay to Start Over. Her first printed book, The Liberated Leader, Leading Up from the Inside Out, will be released on July 30th of 2020. Dr. Synetheia was licensed to preach the gospel in 2003 and holds a doctorate in strategic leadership from Regent University. Dr. Newby, welcome to the show.
Hi, Dr. Kelly. Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Well, I am just so pleased to have you here. We met a couple years ago at a conference that we both presented at, and I was definitely drawn to you then. And so it gives me great joy to have you on the show and talk about leadership.
Yes, definitely. I think it's a heart's cry for both of us. And so I look forward to this being just a natural conversation, much like when we first met at the round table. So
yes,
I'm excited.
And that's what this is about. That's exactly what this platform is about. I would love to, before we get into some of those questions that I already planned to ask you, I'd love to hear about Baku and what the Baku brand is.
Yes. So Baku actually, it stands for boldness, authenticity, courage, and unapologetic. And so it is the Baku brand. And I branded it that way because in all the work that I do, whether it's in consulting, whether it's coaching, whether it's speaking, I always want to leave that imprint of the importance of not operating in fear, and the importance of being our true authentic selves, because we're beautiful just as we are, and we were created that way. And so we cheat ourselves in the world out of that when we try to be someone that we're not. So I love that message of authenticity. And being unapologetic is just about showing up in the world, in every space that you're in, without needing the approval of other people and without apologizing for who you are authentically. Right. So that's the Baku brand, and I absolutely loved it. It is a powerful message for not just women, but for men as well, you know? So that's where Baku came from, and came out of my own life story of struggling with fear and struggling with being who I was authentically and not feeling like that was good enough.
Yeah, so many times, and it could be the most confident of leader, but if you really get down into the nitty gritty and start having conversations, there is still fear within leadership and, a lack of courage and authenticity. And I love, when as a coach or even as a consultant, you can bring a leader into a conversation and really give them that permission to Baku.
Yes. Absolutely. And it's so important because I think in leadership, particularly in leadership roles and positions that have titles, there's an expectation that we're already bold, that we're already courageous by virtue of our title or position. And that's not the case. Many of the leaders that I have coached in local government, in ministry, fear is something that holds them back, and just being afraid to take the risks. And will I meet people's approval? Will I still be able to hold on to my position if I take this leap? And so I think it's a hidden struggle that many leaders have. And so by having these types of conversations, I think it helps people to know that you're not by yourself. When you struggle with fear, when you struggle with being who you are, many of us have had that struggle and still walk through it daily. So you're not alone. So I think that's the other thing that makes the Baku message so powerful.
Yeah, and that is so important. I know for myself personally, it took me years and years to get it, to say,
Yeah.
okay, well, I was created a certain way. I am unique. I'm masterfully crafted. So
Yeah.
why am I trying to be like somebody else? Why can't I just love who I am and be able to express that to the world?
Yeah. And I think oftentimes, Dr. Kelly, the messages are all around us, right? They're present in media. They're even
Mhm.
sometimes for many of us, they've been present in our family. It's the narrative that comes from
Yes.
even those who are closest to us, that have made us feel as though if we didn't fit a particular mold, if you didn't look a certain way, if you didn't
Mhm.
talk a certain way, then it was wrong, as opposed to
Yes.
just seeing it as this is who I am
That's
uniquely,
right.
and it's
That's right.
okay. It's
And
okay.
it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'll tell a really quick interjection here. So, when I started the doctoral journey, I
Hmm.
remember my first term. Now, mind you, I had already gone through a master's degree program and did very well,
Yeah.
but I still wondered, were those grades that I got, were they real? Like, did I really, was I really able to attain, those high grades? And I thought, well, I'll step into this doctoral program and we'll see what happens there. Well, they were the same types of grades that I was getting. And I remember emailing my brothers who are all very successful, highly educated. And I remember sending an email saying, I'm smart. I'm like you guys. And it's like, why would I even think anything otherwise?
Yeah.
And it really held me back for a long time until I addressed exactly what I was feeling with people who were close to me. And
Hmm.
they completely did not even understand why I was sending that email or why I was thinking that.
Yeah.
It's just crazy.
I can so identify with that as well. And another story that kind of coincides with that, there was a brief stint for me that I went to law school. I did not set out on the path that I'm on now. I set out to be a defense attorney, to have my own law firm. So after college, I went straight to law school, and I dropped out after the first year. I completed the first year, but I say that to say I was also like you. I got all these wonderful grades in undergrad and was always excelling, was on the dean's list and everything. And I get to law school and I realized that everybody was on the dean's list at their school. And everyone had all these high grades and marks. And I remember the first paper I got back, Dr. Kelly, in my legal writing class. And literally, it was a 6-page brief, and my professor gave me, very hard critique the first 2
Mm.
pages. Well, the last 4 pages, Dr. Kelly, she just put red X's across the entire page.
Oh boy.
And she wrote me this long memo at the end that told me that I do not write well, that I need to take some remedial courses immediately. I mean, just really broke me down. But I bring that up because that experience, for a while, I carried it as a wound,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I moved through life then thinking that there were areas of me that had these big red X's on them, and
Oh.
they were not sufficient, they were not good enough. And I think those are the type of narratives, I think every leader probably has a story like you and
Mm-hmm.
I have, and we carry that into so many areas of our lives. I mean, that was one piece of my life. That was law school, first year, right? In hindsight now, I understand that there were other people who got the same type of feedback, but for me it felt catastrophic.
Mm.
And much of it had to do with many of my experiences in my childhood. So we have to think about that as leaders, because we bring all of that stuff with us
Yes, we
into our
do.
leadership. Yeah.
Yeah, sure do. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
amazing. When you start peeling back the onion, what you'll find.
Absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely.
oh. Well, I'd love to hear about now you have this book that's coming out. So I'd love to hear about, what does it mean to lead up from the inside out? That
Yes.
sounds pretty exciting.
I am excited about this work it's rooted in my dissertation work, from my doctoral journey. It's called The Liberated Leader, Leading Up from the Inside Out. And it builds upon the idea of what we were just talking about, Dr. Kelly, about, the experiences that we have and the narratives we pick up in life. that if we don't take the time, one, to become aware of those narratives and how they impact us, and if we don't take the time to do that internal work, it can cause us to be ineffective as leaders, right? And so the whole idea of leading up from the inside out has a very spiritual focus, that when I focus on coming into leadership, whole, mind, body, and spirit, and leading in a way that first honors God, then when I lead up, I do the internal work and I do it fearlessly. I don't worry about what other people are going to think about the flaws that I have, because I'm doing it unto God first, and I'm doing that inner work, and then it flows out. So that's the idea of leading up from the inside out. It's the idea of God is my focus, of pleasing him. So I'm going to do this internal work, trusting that he's with me in the process, because he created me. I'm his masterpiece. He's aware of all of my flaws and my inadequacies and the things I don't do well. And he still loves me the same. And so he's my goalpost. And I can have confidence that he's going to help me do that work. And then it's going to overflow into other people. And it then empowers them to lead from a liberated place.
Yeah. And what's so interesting about what you said is that, you know, as a person of faith, we can think of it as really aligning ourselves with God, and, you know, he'll take care of the rest, you know, as long as we're following the path that he has for us, and really discern that. But even in a case where, whether you are of faith or not, when you lead from a place, when you have that measuring stick, right? You know, I can exhibit my faith without saying a word.
Absolutely.
In my leadership.
Yeah. Because it flows from the inside out.
That's right.
And so whatever has happened internally, whoever you subscribe to in your faith, it should always create a change in us on the inside that shows up on the outside. It shows up in how we treat people. It shows up in how we interact with people. It's going to always show up, and we never have to say, oh, I'm a Christian, or, oh, I'm a Muslim, or whatever your faith, or maybe you don't have a particular faith you subscribe to. But when you focus on doing inner work that allows you to become whole, it's going to show up naturally. I mean, it can't help it, because it's like water bubbling up. And it just, it's going to come out. You can't even hold it in. It's infectious.
That's right.
Yeah. So
that's a beautiful place to be.
It is.
Right there.
It is.
You have that trust.
It does. And it takes intentional work, though, Dr. Kelly. And I think we can't miss that part. And that's part of what I talk about in my book, is we have to do the work, though. You have to do the work, whatever that work looks like for you. In my own life story, it has been a mixture of getting mentoring, coaching, and therapeutic support. And that's ongoing work. It's not one-time work, because the reality is, if nothing else we've learned from COVID-19, life happens. And things happen unexpectedly. And it's the same true for us. You know, it's like an onion. You can pull back a layer and it's like, oh, I didn't know that next layer was there. Oh, I didn't know that was there. So from the outside, I love to cook, right? And so the onion looks whole from the outside, but then when I cut it, I realize it's starting to die at the core. And so it's infecting parts of the onion, and you couldn't see it from the outside. But when I cut it open, I could see it very clearly. And so that's why I say it's intentional work. So when I cut it and I see it, then I intentionally have to do the work to get it out, so I can see what's still salvageable with the onion, because there's still something salvageable. And it's true with us too. You know, flaws don't make us unsalvageable.
I love that.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah, it doesn't. But we could go along and people could think that everything's okay, because on the outside, everything looks fine.
Yes, I've lived that life before.
I think we all have. Absolutely. So, yeah.
Oh, so how does spiritual formation kind of intertwine with this work?
You know, when I think about spiritual formation, I think it's that same principle there of being intentional. And it reminds us that none of us arrive at some place overnight. And seeing wholeness, seeing our spiritual development and formation, not as a destination to arrive at, but it's a place that we are constantly sowing into, is how I view spiritual formation. And I think everything that happens, Dr. Kelly, on our life journey contributes to our spiritual formation. I think it's the good and it's the bad, it's the quirky, it's the in between, it's all of that. And I think sometimes it's hard for us to see during challenging and struggle how that could contribute to our growth, but it's the same principle in the natural that when we put seeds in the ground, I love to garden as well. So when we put seeds in the ground, you have to have the sunshine and the rain in order for the seed to grow. And the same is true with our spiritual formation. You have to have both for us to continue to grow and be formed and nurtured in the image of God. You need the sun and you need the rain. That's what spiritual formation is for me in a very practical sense. Like, there's of course a lot of literature about spiritual formation, what that looks like. But I think for me at its root level, spiritual formation is just the ongoing process. It's the ongoing process that we sit in it. And we just trust the process. We trust the highs of it. We trust the lows of it. And that means that there are places where we cry through it, we smile through it, we laugh through it, but all of it shapes who we are, again, from the inside out.
Yeah. And I think too often, like you said, people think that things happen overnight, whether you get that promotion, you land that great job, whatever it is, your leadership, I come from the thinking very similar to you that we are created, we do have a calling, but we also need to be cultivated through our journey. And so we may be sowing those seeds and we may have that watering that's going on, and there may be some thunderstorms during that time, but it all shapes who we are and then how we can bring that authenticity to the world unapologetically, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you mentioned the thunderstorms, a big part of gardening is dealing with the weeds, right? Because weeds are always going to spring up, like you have to expect them. And I was listening to an empowerment call recently, and the pastor on that call was talking about the principle of the weeds and how what we've sown in the ground, the nutrients that feed weeds are the same nutrients that feed the seed. And so if you don't take the time to address the weeds as soon as they pop up, then they can overtake your crop.
That's right. And we don't want that.
You don't want that. That's why it has to be ongoing daily work that we do. And I use the word work, but not from a harsh place, but just a way for us to think about how we approach doing inner work. Because work is common to us. Most of us get up and go to a particular job, or even if you're an entrepreneur, we understand work. And so we'll put meetings on our schedules. We'll put all the things that are work related very seamlessly. But usually we are the last thing that will show up on our schedule.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so important for leaders we're usually taking care of everybody else.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And so really having that work and taking that time to do that inner work is so imperative for leaders.
Yeah, we can't avoid it and we can't dismiss it.
No, we can't. That's for sure.
Yeah, because it's going to show up in some form or fashion.
Yes. Yeah.
So, yeah.
So why is the concept of leading up valuable to the Christian and non-Christian leader? And I think we talked a little bit about that. Is there anything else you'd like to say on that topic?
No, I think that you summed it up well. It's no matter what your belief system is, there is always room for growth. There's always room for development. When we bring in the faith aspect, that's really just about the source that you pull on to be able to walk through those growth processes. But every person, regardless of what you believe, we all have a growth process. we should all be focused on evolving and becoming, the best version of ourselves. And when I say the best version of ourselves, I mean who we were always created to be. That's the best version of you, is
It
who you were
is.
always created to be. So I think it's applicable. Leading up is applicable because it's about growth. It's about inner working. It's about development. It's about evolving. It's about being your best authentic self.
Yeah. And, so many people think that they can go to trainings and just, come away with, I don't know, a different approach or whatnot. And I think what's always important when you are developing as a leader, you can go to a training, but if you're not implementing what you've learned, or if you have a coach and you're not really digging deep in to the work in order to, promote you forward, you're not going to go anywhere. So it's important to, yes, have that training, but really look into that development side like you're talking about and addressing some of those areas where we need to grow in.
And that's one of the things I love about leadership coaching. In some circles, it's still called executive coaching with, semantics, whichever one you prefer to use. But coaching really helps you to dig down, to do that unearthing. And it's such an intimate process. It's one of the things that I love so much because it's a space that leaders can come into where they can take off the mask. You can take off the face where you have to show up for everybody else. And if you're willing, we can walk together to do the work. It's not therapy. It is having critical conversations. It is developing a depth of self-awareness that maybe you've not experienced before. It's setting very specific goals about where you want to go, who you want to be, and what it's going to require to get there. And that's very intimate, valuable work. I wish every leader did leadership coaching because we need it. We need that space to just breathe, you know? And if you commit to it, the results are amazing. I have worked with some amazing leaders in local government. Primarily my clients come from local government and from Christian ministry. So working with pastors and ministers, city managers, assistant city managers, those spaces are so needed because it gives you that breath, and every leader needs a breath.
They sure do. Yeah. And so many times, and I've said that on this on other podcasts, leaders, especially executives, you don't go up with your stuff. Right. And so bringing a coach in where you can, again, it's not therapy. As a coach, we are looking for you to come in. We're partnering with you. We're partnering with your thought process in order to position you for success, whatever success looks like to you. It's not what the coach thinks.
Exactly.
It's about what the client thinks and how a coach can position in that sacred space, and it is such a sacred space for that relationship to flourish, and then have the leader be able to truly be positioned towards the goal that they set.
Yeah. I've worked even, Dr. Kelly, with some awesome moms because moms are leaders.
Yes, they are.
Moms are leaders, dads are leaders. Any place that your influence touches someone else's life and you use it because you're trying to accomplish some goal, some vision, something, it's a leadership role. And so one of the things that, some of my clients have told me previously is, not only is this coaching helping me in my professional life, but it's helping me to be a better mom. It's helping me to be a better dad. It's helping me to be a better spouse. I've heard that as well. And I think that's amazing because I think coaching, when it's done well, should touch on every area of your life, that even if you come in from a professional standpoint, it should have such an influence on you that it shifts how you approach every other area in your life.
Yeah. And we do wear so many hats during our life, right? As we're walking out. And it's not that we're always taking the hats off. It's like, we wear them. We're in the office. We're still a parent or a grandparent or a spouse,
Right.
and so we're always within relationships. And I think coaching does have that ability to strengthen relationships regardless of where you land on that hierarchy chart, whether you think you're a leader or not. Like you said, you are a leader, regardless. And I am of that same thought process. And the most important person we lead is ourselves. And so,
Oh,
really doing that work is so imperative so we can touch on all those other relationships, like you said.
that's good. I like that. Yeah, leading ourselves. And I
Yes.
think that's one of the areas that we neglect. We don't even see it
Mm-hmm.
that way. We don't see our self-care regimens or the absence
Mm-hmm.
thereof as
Mm-hmm.
leading ourselves. We don't see what we do for our own spiritual development, whatever that looks like for you on a daily basis. We don't see that as leading ourselves, but it really is, because I have the greatest influence on me. What I think,
Mm-hmm.
how I see something has the greatest influence on me than anybody else.
Sure does.
Mm-hmm.
Sure does.
Yeah.
And too many times we get stuck because of that thinking. So it better be the right thinking that we're having.
Exactly. Because it's going to lead us wherever we say it's going to
That's
lead.
right. That's right. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, why don't you tell the audience about a defining moment in your leadership and how it shaped you as a leader?
Mm. Yeah, immediately this came to mind. So I'm in my 40s now. I'm on a fast track to 50, Dr. Kelly. And so I was in my 20s at this time. And when I think from a positional leadership standpoint, this was one of my first leadership positions. I was working for a nonprofit organization, doing community outreach and education work. And so I had one other person on my team that I was responsible for. And so I realized during the course of a company team building day, and we had this activity to do where the person's name that you pulled out the basket, you had to imitate how they show up in the workspace. And
Oh.
so this person who was on my team chose my name, and you have to guess who the person is. And so she begins to act out how this person shows up in the workspace. And in her acting out, this person doesn't ask for help. Um, this person doesn't acknowledge when they need help. This person tries to shoulder all the work themselves and how it impacts other people. And so people around the room were kind of like, oh, we don't know. They throw out names. And so finally someone throws out my name, and the person says, my team member says, yes, that's who it is. And I remember feeling as though someone had really punched me in my gut,
Yeah.
like the breath just left me. And it was particularly hard because at that point in my life, I had not done the work of
Mm.
sitting with experiences from my childhood that shaped the way I acted and interacted with and treated other people. And so pride said, that's not me. I don't act like that. You know, no.
Silly pride.
I was angry. I was angry. And that anger showed up in my interactions with her in the days that followed.
Mhm.
And at some point, we ended up having a conversation about it. And she was able to share, being on the other side as the follower, being my team
Mhm.
member, how it made her feel, where she would see me struggling to get things done. And if I just asked her for help, she could have helped me. Or the times when she came and offered to help and said, hey,
Mm.
can I do this for you? Can I do this for you? Can I help you with this? Why don't you let me take care of this? And I would tell her no. And she shared with me how it made her feel. And
Mm.
that was different for me, Dr. Kelly. Not only was it different because I didn't realize that that's what I was putting out there to people,
Yeah.
but I also didn't realize how it impacted those with whom I had influence.
Mm.
I had no idea. And that was a pivotal shift for me. And I've never forgotten about it. And I've carried it with me into every other, not just every other positional leadership role, but just into life. Because when pride moved out of the way, humility could step in and say, she wasn't lying. That is what you do. You don't ask for help. You try and do everything on your own because you think asking for help is a sign of weakness.
Yes, I lived that life too. I remember I was not a delegator.
Mm-hmm.
And it is so important as leaders to delegate and not just delegate. I think it's Pastor Craig Groeschel who says something about delegating authority is telling your people that you trust them.
Yes.
And so when I read that and I really kind of chewed on it a little bit, and I thought, wow, that is a powerful message right there. You need to be delegating. You need to be bringing people into that fold where you are allowing them authority and that you are trusting them. You are, you're there for them if they need it, but giving them the opportunity to use their gifts and talents in their leadership.
Yeah.
So I get that.
Yeah.
Totally.
And I love what you just shared, because it's a reminder to us that leadership is relational. Mm-hmm. If we are approaching leadership from a standpoint of it being about the leader, we've already missed it, because it's relational. Yes. Leadership is about the relationships that you form with people, wherein you build a camaraderie, you build a trust, a type of compassion where you work together and you flow together well towards the common goal, right? And it doesn't mean that there are not bumps in, along the way, but it means that we take the time to then sit with those bumps and we figure out what we're communicating to each other. We figure out how what we do and say affects one another. So it's not one-sided. And in that relationship, it leaves room for what we should all be doing as leaders, which is developing more leaders.
Yes.
We shouldn't be developing more followers. We need more leaders.
Leaders.
Yeah. So yeah, I love that. It's that relational piece. We have to have relationship. You can't neglect it. And in the workplace, it doesn't mean that we are so engaged in the personal lives of those that we work with and those whom we lead from a workplace standpoint, but it means that we have an awareness that people are people outside of the tasks and responsibilities they have. And we have a responsibility from a leadership perspective to make sure we're always cognizant of that, and that we're always sensitive to how that not only shows up for other people in the relationship, but the same thing is true about us. And so that means we have to have critical and courageous conversations with each other.
Yes. Yeah. And being vulnerable, like during that activity, that team building activity, that's a vulnerable space right there for you to be receiving the truth. Yeah. And love. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, Dr. Kelly, I didn't feel the love. I didn't feel the love, but what I did feel in hindsight was, for some reason, that was the only space that she felt like she could share that. And that became a question of what type of atmosphere have I set that it had to come out that way. Yeah. Yeah, but I didn't feel the love, Dr. Kelly.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's made you a stronger leader.
It has, and a more aware leader. Yeah. It's made me more aware. It has made me create guidelines for myself, particularly in the workplace, that when I have interactions with those who are on my team that are uncomfortable, that if I have a strong, visceral, emotional response, you don't speak in that moment. Synetheia, you give yourself 24 hours to do a couple of things. One, for me, because my faith is so integral, one, you give yourself space to go have a conversation with God about what you heard and what you experienced. Two, you take a good hard look in the mirror to find the places of truth and the places of error. And you don't embrace the errors, but you embrace the truth points.
Yes.
And then you have a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some great practical application
Yeah.
for leaders to grab a hold of, because that really cultivating that self-awareness does make you a better leader, a more powerful leader, and you become empowered by what you have learned. So you can empower others and be talking about your experiences, how it hindered you, but then how you were able to have that mindset shift,
Yeah.
and then shift your whole even demeanor as to how you lead.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And it comes down then to those things that you do on a day-to-day basis. It's about how you present yourself non-verbally when you're
Mm-hmm.
engaging with people. It's about, particularly for those who are in positions of leadership, it's about creating space for your team members, that it's not just bringing them in when there's something wrong with their performance that needs to be managed. It is an awareness that if I see something different in your affect today, if I see something different in your tone that's not typical for you, and I know that by virtue of building relationship with you, it's taking the time to say, hey, do you have about 5 minutes that we can chat? And just opening the door to say, is everything okay with you today? And it gives them the power to decide whether that's in a conversation they want to engage in or not. And I have found 9 times out of 10 that when we demonstrate that sense of care and compassion and awareness about other people, they're open to say, you know what, today's not a good day. And they may even share things that puts them in an extremely vulnerable position. But what it helps us to do as leaders is to walk with care with one another. And it doesn't absolve people of their tasks or responsibilities that they have to carry out. But if it's within my power to make a shift for that day as to what's going to help you be successful, then I use that power and influence to shift for the day so that I get the best out of you and
That's
you get the
right.
best out of yourself, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And creating that culture is imperative, for organizations. And so I would much rather work within a culture where, every day isn't going to be a great day. And like you said, it doesn't mean that it's devoid of the tasks that are at hand. But if you can have a conversation around what you're going through in the moment with somebody who actually is exhibiting that they care about you, I am going to show up every day for that leader.
Every day without fail. I'm testament of it, Dr. Kelly. People will show up differently when they know that you care.
Yes.
They will show up in unexpected ways. They will show up above and beyond, because what you've demonstrated to me is that you care about me as a person. You're aware of who I am as a person. And that makes all the difference in the world. I mean, we can think about how we feel when people exhibit care towards us and compassion. We show up differently for people than
so important.
people who don't care.
Well, Dr. Synetheia, this has been an amazing conversation. I could probably sit here and talk to you for hours.
Ditto. I feel the same way. I'm thinking, oh gosh, this is almost over. I want to talk to Dr. Kelly some more. So we'll have to do that. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. But I would love to be able to connect people with you. I know that you have a new book coming out on the 30th, right, of July.
Yes.
Which we are recording on the 8th. So it is at the end of this month. So where else can people find you, find out about what you do, be able to maybe have a conversation with you?
Absolutely. So you can find me on all social media outlets, on Facebook, on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. I am under the same handle. I am Dr. Newby. That's IAMDRNEWBY. So on social media, you can put in that handle and you'll always find me there. People can also email me at snn@iamdrnewby.com. And speaking of iamdrnewby.com, I'm very excited, Dr. Kelly, because I've been undergoing a rebranding process. So my new website launches at the end of this month, right in tandem with my new book release. So people will be able to find me at iamdrnewby.com as of August 1.
All right. And that is coming up right around the corner.
And I'm super excited.
And where will they be able to purchase your book that's coming
You'll
up?
be able to get it on my website. If you're interested in knowing as we get ready for the release of the book, be sure to email me. And what I'd like to do is add you to a list that I've already begun to develop for those who are ready to purchase the book. So again, you can email me at snn@iamdrnewby.com, and I'm going to add you to the list, and I'm going to shoot out an email to you to let you know when the website is live and you're able to purchase the book.
That is so exciting. Congratulations on the rebrand, on the book. I hope that you're going to send that book to that law professor.
I had not thought about that, Dr. Kelly, but I may have to track her down and get that book in her hand.
There you go. Remember me?
So good. So yeah, I'll think about that.
You think about that. Oh, well, thank you again for coming on Conversations for Leaders and Teams. I have just enjoyed this conversation immensely.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Well, we'll see you soon.
All right. Take care.
Yep, you too. Bye-bye. Until next time, this is Dr. Kelly Whalen. Keep doing great things because our world needs leaders like you.